son out of my baby. She put him in her bin and she put her dead baby next to me. And in the morning when I got up to feed my son, I saw that he was dead. But when I looked at him in life, I knew he wasn't my son. No, the other one shouted, he was your son. My baby is alive. The dead baby is yours. The first woman yelled, mine is alive. They argued back and forth in front of King Solomon until finally he said, both of you shall both to you say, this live baby is yours. So someone bring me a sword. A sword was brought and Solomon ordered, cut the baby in half. And each part would be given a part to them. The horse mother said, please don't kill my son. The mother screamed, your majesty, I love him very much, but give him to her. Don't just kill him. I want to talk about real moms, real women. I'm going to ask this show because real men, real fathers, real men, that is still our steel. Change. This story of the prostitutes who came to King Solomon is and should be a very familiar story to many of you. You were here last night and you got that question wrong on the page. And shame on you. It's a classic story. It's a classic story. But you know, one problem that exists sometimes in classical biblical stories is that we often learn the primary lesson, but fail to see other parts of the story. We all know this to be a story of two women fighting over a child. A child that each one says was hers. One lady being in such distress over the death of her child that she switched child and then went into denial, wanting to claim the living child. And of course, the natural mother wanted to claim what was rightfully hers. And Solomon, using a strange method of wisdom, decided just to cut the baby in half. Wow. We all know this is a story of the sacrifices mothers sometimes make. Your mother said, don't kill the child, just give the child away. And let the other mother keep her. And we know how Solomon brought wisdom out of this story and decided, well, based on your willingness to give the child up, you must be the real mother. We see the story of wisdom, a story of grace, we see a moving story, but there are some things that sometimes when you reread the Bible and when you reread Scripture, there are things that come out that we don't always see. So I want to look at three different morals that come out of this story that maybe we may not have realized about this story, because we read this story and depending on what version you read, you miss the first and the most crucial point of this story. And the first thing we must share with you that there is no such thing as a perfect mother. Amen. I don't say this to drag mothers down, but to really illustrate the fact that there is no such thing as a perfect mother. No one needs to be treated with more tenderness than our mothers. Perhaps no one is more caring, more conscientious than our mothers. Sometimes we're too hard on them, sometimes we're too hard on ourselves, but there is no such thing as a perfect mother. Now, when I say perfect, I don't mean that they cook good, that they make the bed, and that they on time, and that they take you to all the ball games, that they're there to kiss your little cut that you get on your hand and put band-aids on it, and all the things that you know mothers do. This story is not about two ordinary mothers. This story is about two prostitutes whose children were born in and out of sin. We don't always look at that aspect of the story. Their babies were evidently conceived under sinful And if that doesn't grab you and make you sit up in your pews, perhaps then maybe we should take notice. Why did Solomon, the king of God's chosen people, take time to worry about two prostitutes who had been given birth to two babies and one had died? These women were sinful women who participated with sinful men. Let's not leave the men out of the picture. All right. Who paid for their services and were living out of God's will. Solomon was concerned about these two women, not so much because there was a situation, but because God was still concerned about them. I don't have to convince the church today that it should stand for moral purity and morality and good things, but the church should also stand for a place of forgiveness and restoration. These women were not living up to God's ideals, yet God still loved them. If any of us had to wait for God to love us based on our performances, we would probably be out of luck. That other people put on us. If there's anyone whom we should be willing to overlook the faults, it should be our mothers. Why? Because your mothers overlook your faults sometimes.
All right.
Mothers have a hard time with their child when they're at home and they get a phone call from the police saying that their child has been locked up for doing something they had no business doing. They're not happy. They're upset. But yet, still in the midst of their upsetness, they go down and bail you out. Mothers have a one-sided perception of the innocence of their children. If you don't believe it, ask a teacher. I used to teach in Chicago and I hated it. There ain't none. Parents would come up to me and, why did my child get an F in your class? I would have to straightforward tell her, your child talks too much. He doesn't do his work. He doesn't dress. He doesn't participate. No, my child would never do anything like that. Are you talking about the same child that I see day in and day out? No, my child is not a bad child. My child would never do something like that. You must be wrong. Well, all the children in my class probably should have got A's. Somebody doesn't do their work. Somebody did. Maybe I got it wrong. Maybe it's not your child. No, I don't say all that. You know, in the back of it, it just mystified me that, the child that you see at home is nothing like the child that sits in my class. But yet in that mother's mind, they will defend that child to the bone. I only knew one parent who understood how to put up a good front. Because she gave me the same story. My child would never do such like this. She went home and put that child away. She was just putting up a front for me. And for the child to make the child think she was defending him in public. But then she went home and he got me. That was kind of way. Life is too short for us to understand. Mothers oftentimes make that sacrifice and overlook the faults of their child, much like God overlooks the faults of so many who come to him with true repentance and true faith, trying to fix up the mess that they made in their lives. God still finds a way, even though we are unworthy, to go into his pocketbook of life and buy us an ice cream cone that we know we do not deserve. Mothers would do that for their children. They would spend their last dime. They would have, it was amazing. 2 Sundays ago, I watched why can't I think of it? He stood by Sister Carruthers and just stood there. And I said, why is he standing there? Someone said, Sister Carruthers has a gun in her purse. Standing there waiting for his gun because he knew Grandma was going to give him some gun. Grandma would do that. Grandma would bring a big supply of stuff for their grandchildren, especially when you got only 2 of them. Big supply. There's another moral that we want to find in this story. Not only was God concerned about these 2 women, as he is concerned about them. God also has an answer for every mother's problem. Don't look for a stress-free life. Sometimes I think we don't quite understand what we get into when we become parents and mothers especially. Stress-free motherhood does not exist. From the pains of giving birth, to the empty nest, to the grandchildren, and beyond. Motherhood is a stressful time. You know you have raised your child. But even when you know where your child is, you still worry about where your child is. You knew they were going such and such a place, but you still worry about them at such and such a place. One of the great things, children, let me give you insight on how to gain your mother's respect. When you go out, phone home. You got it easier than I had. When I was a kid, I had to find a telephone. They did not have cell phones in my day. Stop playing games on the cell phone and call your mama and tell your mama where you at.
All right. Amen.
Now, my mother would call and verify I'm at my friend's house. But I didn't know my mother had my friend's mother's phone. She would call back on another line. Is he there? But I was always there. So you gain favor with your mother when you always say you are. And for those of you mothers whose child has a cell phone, my son finally caught me. My son has a cell phone, but I have family locator on my cell phone. I can locate my child any time of day. GPS in that phone, with that family plan, and it showed me in the map where he is. Then he found out I had one, and he said, stop trying to track me. You just want to know where your child is. God has an answer for every problem that a mother might develop. Once again, it's not mentioned here to discourage anyone, but there's good news. God is willing to assist moms in every problem that they encounter. You may have, I'm not saying you're going to have the same type of problem these 2 mothers had with the death of a child, but God gave Solomon enough wisdom so that he would stand in a place and pull from the situation and gave him wisdom for the purpose. God not only loves those who true but he also loved the baby in the story. He dispatched the little wisdom for Solomon just enough so that the child could be saved. God has an answer to get you out of any type of situation that you might find yourself in with your family or with your children. If you allow God to speak, to move, and to wait on him to move in your life, he may be in trouble with you, but God yet might have a way of getting your child out of trouble. God's wisdom to spare for us for parenting responsibilities today. He can guide and provide mothers with all kinds of life situations. It doesn't matter whether you're a single mom, adopted mom, a stepmom, a mom with a special situation, a foster mom, a grandmom, a great-grandmom, or just a mom taking care of a child. Whose mother, and you might even be a church mother. Those are the best kinds of church mothers. I can go home to my church today, St. Mark Senior Church in Joliet, and I have so many mothers. We have church mothers you just can't act up. You've got to be good. I had several mothers who were not afraid to take me to the back pew and sit me down. She put a caution. Every child in the church would have to sit in the back next to her. If you acted up. If you acted up. Now, if you're good, you can stay where you act. And then you have to reposition yourself. Children could only sit in certain places. Because if your mother was in the choir, she had to have eye contact with you. And mothers back in the day had a look about them. They didn't have to say nothing. They'd be up here singing, and they'd be in the middle of a song. Singing the song, and you can see it. You're sitting there, you know she's looking at somebody, and that child would just because you knew after church was over, she would be singing a different song. And how dare you screw over in the pew so your mother couldn't see you, because she would slide over in the quiet thing to make sure she had direct eye contact with you, even if she had to come over and sit in an alto section. And she was a soprano. If she could not see the child, she would move so that she could have direct contact with you. And if you leaned down in the seat, she would send a note down to an usher to make you sit back up so she could look at you. Mothers communicated back then. But the good thing about church mothers is they take care of you. The same one who would always sit back there and chastise me was one of the first ones to help me get through college financially. They all had candy money. They would take you to the zoo, take you to the park. They knew everything a real mother would do for their own child. So sometimes it might be worth it just to get that. Now, not worth it punishment, but they were mothers in the true sense of the mother. He had wisdom to spare parenting responsibilities for today. Kids today have special needs, and that's okay. God has the wisdom to give you the task. He can teach you what you need to do or what you should do in every given situation, so that you can understand the responsibilities of the role that you have as a mother is really like a godly mother, because you are in the eyes of the child. And I always say this to babies that are baptized: the mother, to that mother, you are God in the eyes of that child. Yes. When they want to be fed, they're looking for you to put that bottle in their mouth. When their diaper needs to be changed, they're looking for you to change their diapers. You are the only thing you are the closest thing to God that they can understand. And that's why you should raise your child in the fear of God, so that one day when they get old enough, they can see God for himself and stop looking at you. That doesn't mean they're going to forget about you. But they need to understand, they need to see God, and they need to know that God has the same qualities that you should have as a good mother. Lastly, there's nothing like a good mother.